The law isn't dedicated to justice, it's dedicated to profits. Education is not dedicated to teaching, it's dedicated to profits. Healthcare is not dedicated to health, it's dedicated to profits. The media is not dedicated to journalism, it's dedicated to profits. Government is not dedicated to people, it's dedicated to profits. The only minority that you should blame is the 1%. Let me ask you something. Do you think that you have anything in common with a Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon, Steven Schwartzman, Bill Gates, Apartheid Clyde, Jeff Bezos, Bernard Arnault? Do you think you have anything to do with these people? You're not a capitalist, okay? You're a worker. If you work for a living, you are in the working class. Congratulations. Most people are. You are not a benefactor of capitalism. You are not a beneficiary of capitalism. So quit simping for your capitalist overlords. They do not care about you. They will literally melt you down into biomatter and use you as jet fuel for their next flight to space. They do not like you. They don't think about you. They are literally exploiting you. You are the reason that they are enjoying such a luxurious, lavish life. Think about that the next time you go to work, okay? Think about that the next time you earn a wage which says you have a right to be here on this earth. You are not an institutional player. You have nothing to do with the captains of industry. You are not an institutional investor. You don't own any capital. Even if you own a home, that is not the means of production. Even if you own a car, that is not the means of production. If you were a worker and you defend capitalism, no. All that tells me, or anyone with any sense, is that you just fundamentally don't understand the political economy that you live in. You don't understand how the system is actually exploiting and undermining your very existence. If capitalism is so great, why does it need to be bailed out by socialism every 4 to 7 years? If capitalism is a human nature, why does it require a militarized police state and legal enforcement? Why do we need an armed enforcement of human nature? If capitalism is meritocratic, why is most wealth inherited? If capitalism is meritocratic, why are most millionaires and billionaires white? If capitalism is society, then why has it only existed for hundreds of years? If capitalism is the free market, then why does it require a tacit government insurance policy to bail it out of its own insolvency? If capitalism rewards hard work, then why are the hardest working people living paycheck to paycheck? If capitalism lifts hundreds of millions out of poverty, then why, oh why, are those hundreds of millions of people Chinese, under the direction of the Communist Party? If capitalism innovates, then why do those innovations come from government funding? You know, it's almost as if capitalism is none of those things, and it's just the private ownership of public resources. Sounds crazy, I know. How dare you talk bad about capitalism, sir? Capitalism created Beyonce. And not just her, I can name 2 other black people that it helped. If capitalism bad, then why Jay-Z? Do you honestly believe that Dr. Dre and Jay-Z could have been so successful if the political economy didn't huddle them into projects, force them to be poor, uneducated, and slanging crack rock in order to sustain a living? That's right. Add that to the list of capitalist success. Gangster rap. Sure, I'm a working class member of society, but I love to defend billionaires online. It's working out great for me. Capitalism gave Beyonce her musical talent, thank you very much. Take that, racism. And people want to say racism is systemic. Jay-Z much? Yes, those 1 or 2 outlier success stories completely validates the whole political economy that we live in. Never mind all those millions and millions of black people that are living in squalor. What about Dr. Dre, home slice? Checkmate, lib. Wage labor is slavery, when you are forcibly deprived of your basic human survival needs and must submit your time, your energy, your labor, your body to another class of people in order to acquire those needs, then you are not free. You are being coerced, like it or not, even if you don't see it. Well, if that's the case, then most people today are slaves. Capitalism lifts millions out of poverty. Yeah, they were Chinese and they did it despite the US-dominated global finance system. Where'd you get that? Some Chinese website? The World Bank? They did that because they embraced capitalism. They opposed ideologically, socially, politically, and morally the idea of private enterprise. That's authoritarian capitalism. It's the Communist Party of China attempting to institute socialism in the context of nation states and a global finance system dominated by Western private capital. And guess what? They're winning. China has the fastest growing economy in the world. China alone accounts for close to 75% of the global reduction of people who are living in extreme poverty. You take China out of this equation, the stark realities of capitalism becomes very, very clear. The GDP of BRICS, which is the economic alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is larger than the economic alliance of the G7, which is the United States, Canada, and its Western European allies. And the gap is only widening. While it's true that China used production inputs from American corporations to grow its economy, it did all of this as an international pariah from the global finance system. It did this in spite of economic sanctions from the United States. It did this in spite of being a political enemy of the United States. Why is it easier to believe that 300 million Americans are lazy rather than just 400 Americans are greedy? How does this person not realize that the lazy people that he's referring to are people like Wall Street bankers and venture capitalists and private equity firms, and not regular working class people like himself? You're right, it's not a billionaire's job to fix everyone's life for them. It's literally a billionaire's job to exploit everyone's life for their benefit and self-enrichment. That is the name of the game. Welcome to capitalism. It's a sick, anti-human game designed for sociopaths. Do I think billionaires could do more for society? No. I think they could do less, far less. They could divest. They could stop hoarding wealth and resources, denying people access to basic human needs for survival. That is an abomination on human rights. And if you support billionaires, you support your right to be exploited. You are defending mass starvation and poverty. It is fundamentally a problem in this society that more people do not understand how billionaires materially affect poverty. The two are intrinsically linked. For you to still believe in the myth of meritocracy is troubling. We are not talking about fixing people's lives. We're talking about giving people human dignity and living with the bare basic needs for survival, which is being denied by extreme wealth hoarders. And furthermore, they're parasites on the population. They're literally parasites on society. Capitalism is not free market and rugged individualism. It is socialism for the rich. Capitalism is privatization of land, resources, wealth, political power, property, profits, and the exploitation of people. It's profits over people, which is unjust and is driving the planet to a mass extinction event. The 400 richest Americans own more than the bottom 150 million. 8 men own more wealth than 4 billion people. The average pay ratio between CEOs and workers is approaching 500 to 1 in the United States. At the turn of the last century, in 1900, JP Morgan said, if this ratio ever went above 10 to 1, we would be rioting in the streets. So much for that. Have you ever noticed that we have governments, but they have regimes? We don't have to consent to our oppression. If somebody ever tries to get you to hate on your fellow working class friends for whatever reason, sex, gender, nationality, income, just tell them you don't fight the culture war. You fight the class war. We need to radicalize more liberals. At this point, nationalizing Amazon is the working class revolution. Here's what Joe Biden would look like if he were a Marxist. Don't forget, socialism just means workers control production. Defund it. Defund what? All of it. Everything. Housing? Yes. Healthcare? Yes. Welfare? Yes. Education? Yes. Transportation? Yes. Social security? Everything. Then what do we fund? Defense. Okay, well, all those things that we defunded, they don't work anymore. Look, you see, I told you government is incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. Criminalize it. Criminalize what? Poverty, being poor. Well, that's mainly gonna affect minorities and marginalized people. Sounds good to me. Okay, well, the people whose way of life we've criminalized, yeah? They're all criminals now. You see, we told you they were violent scum. Put them away. Let's keep expanding to the east. Expand what? NATO. Well, we promised Russia we weren't gonna move even so far as an inch to the east. Yeah, but I need those markets. They're probably gonna perceive this as a threat, and it's gonna lead to destability in the region and maybe even a war. Perfect. Okay, well, it led to war. Russia finally attacked. You see, we told you Russia was evil, violent scum. If capitalism works so well, why does it require a standing army and a militarized police force to protect it from both the foreign and domestic populations? This is your daily reminder that in a crisis, capitalism will always side with fascism because fascism doesn't threaten capital. Liberals will always make excuses for fascism, which predictably enables fascism to consolidate power. Socialism, communism, and anarchism are the only ideologies which rightly oppose fascism and capitalism. This is hands down the best argument I've ever heard for abolishing capitalism. This person's right. You deserve what you earn. This is music to my ears. The very fact that there is a class of people who get what they do not deserve is the whole reason that socialism exists, and it is the only thing that socialism is trying to correct. This is why capitalists spend all of their resources in extracting the surplus value that labor creates. In capitalism, there is one class of people who get what they do not produce, and another class of people that produce what they do not get. And this is the problem. Workers deserve what they earn. Labor creates value, not capital. Remember that capitalism is simply a system of organizing the means of production, distribution, and exchange into two separate classes of owners and workers. Capitalism thrives on this class distinction: capital, labor. Capitalism prioritizes capital. Capitalism exploits labor. Socialism prioritizes labor. If you are a working class member of society, you're a socialist. That's it. It's that simple. If you're a working class member of society who identifies as a capitalist, you're confused, and you need some class consciousness because your actions are antithetical to your material conditions and your class interests. This is true. All the videos that I make, all the content that I create, that I labor over, that I put my time and effort and energy into, is free for people to consume. As a socialist, I believe that workers should be compensated for their work. I believe that I should be able to be compensated for my work, for my labor, if it is of value to people. Furthermore, you can criticize capitalism, a system that you were forced to participate in, while also recognizing that you need to participate in that system in order to live and continue living. Yes, you can live in capitalism and make money and yet be critical of the system that you are living in. It is possible, and it isn't diametrically opposed. They are not mutually exclusive ideas. Were slaves hypocrites for participating in slavery and yet also being critical of slavery too? I just want everyone to take a moment and observe the idiocy of this comment, okay? This person thinks that capitalism is when workers are paid for their work. Do you understand how that is absolute brain rot propaganda? Capitalism is a system of private ownership and exploitation of labor. Socialism is just laborers owning their labor and being compensated fairly for their labor. Capitalism is the opposite of people getting paid for their work. It is the exploitation of people that do work. And to those who do donate to this page, I sincerely thank you because it definitely helps me continue making content. So thank you for being here. Thanks to this guy for doing the big think and realizing that everyone needs to make money in capitalism in order to have their basic needs met. Way to go. Property rights are not human rights. Human rights are inclusive. Property rights are exclusive. My right to free speech doesn't infringe on your right to free speech. My right to own this power plant does infringe on your right to own this power plant. You can't have it, it's mine. Property rights exclude people. Human rights include people. We live in a privatized world. Privatization. We live in a world of investor rights and patent rights. Think about it. The wealthiest people in this world are not geniuses, they're not inventors, they're not innovators, they're investors. Elon Musk did not invent Tesla. He didn't even invent his fake hair. In 2003, Elon Musk donated $6.3 million to Tesla and demanded that his name be added as one of the founders. And he's been buying his PR ever since. If investing in Tesla means you can claim yourself as one of its founders, then every American can claim that title. We've paid over $3 billion to Tesla. Not to mention his other company, SpaceX, has received $15.3 billion from the government since 2003. Kind of funny when you think about it that Elon has been branding certain Twitter accounts as government funded like he did with NPR, when Elon is perhaps the most government funded person on the planet. Boom! But as with every capitalist, every accusation is just an admission. Isn't it a bit odd? Elon Musk's SpaceX, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic, billionaires using our unpaid wages as play money for their space programs. Space is the final frontier, and after they've wrecked this planet, they'll move on to more exotic locations in the solar system, doing exactly what they did here. The rich elite are not better than you, they're sociopaths. They've privatized public land, patented public technology. Bill Gates. They've made a fortune privatizing access to public resources. It's been like this forever. This country was founded on property rights. It's been baked into the Constitution. The chief architect of the Constitution, James Madison, said this openly. The primary function of government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority of the poor. The privileged right for a wealthy class of people to own property was always a chief concern of the founding fathers. There were rising standards of living in slave societies as well. Slaves were much better off in 1820 than they were in 1720. Is that an argument for slavery? Of course not. It's a terrible argument to make, and you shouldn't make that argument. Also, your example of North Korea is again flawed. North Korea is an international pariah simply because they oppose capitalism, simply because they oppose United States imperialism. We're talking about a country that was bombed into glass by the United States. We have sanctioned that country to death. Of course they are disadvantaged. We're talking about a country that the US bombed literally a fifth of their population, killing 1.5 million people. Every North Korean town was bombed to destruction. Again, North Korea is not an argument of why people shouldn't be in control of their resources. Capitalism is a great system. It's just not a great system for most of the people on Earth. It's a great system if you are Larry Fink. It's a great system if you are Jeff Bezos. It's a great system if you are in the top fraction of 1% of the population. Yeah, you're doing really great, and it works really well for those people. Oh, and lo and behold, it's those people that control all the resources, that control all the political power, that control all the wealth of a nation. Interesting, very funny that they have decided what should be done with the world's resources. And funny that they decided that it should all go to them. This is not rocket science. You're being duped. You're being scammed. You're being grifted. Your whole life is being exploited to serve the top fraction of 1%. We're talking about thousands of people. Not millions, not billions. Thousands. Literally 400 Americans control more wealth than the bottom 150 million of the population. How do you in your own mind not recognize and not factor into your analysis that you are living in a political economy that incentivizes greed and sociopathic behavior? When you live in a system that is based on the principle of self-enrichment, and it encourages people to think only for themselves. It encourages people to think only for the commodities that they can acquire for themselves, no matter what the cost is to the public. In fact, self-enrichment is actually based on the exploitation of the public. Then it is no surprise that you have people behaving in this way. It is what the system rewards. That doesn't mean that it's human nature. It's akin to going to a circus and seeing an elephant riding a bike and thinking that that is the elephant's nature. No, that's not the elephant's nature, that's just how it behaves when it's in a circus. It is being made to perform a certain way. This is the spirit of the age that we live in. It is all about the individual. It is not about the community, it is not about the population, it's not about the public, it's not about anything else but individual success. Side note, that's a lie because there is no individual success without society, without public infrastructure. It doesn't matter what the risk or the cost is to the public. In fact, that's what economists call externalities. They're not factored into the business model of capitalism. If you are a CEO of a company and you decide that you are going to put the well-being of the public or the environment over the profits of the company, then you are going to be fired and out of a job. It's literally legally mandated to behave this way. If you are not pursuing short-term profits for your company as a CEO, you are out of a job. So of course you're going to get people that behave this way. That's why I say the people necessarily aren't evil, it is the system that is evil. It incentivizes evil behavior. One CEO decides to make a decision that is rooted in the public's well-being and not in short-term profits, then the board of directors will fire them and they will replace them with someone who does do the job.
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Clinton sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. You gave the orders to do drone strikes. Invaded Nicaragua in '85.